Okay, I want to talk about solving equations when the equation has fractions or decimals in it. And I've got a few examples here. One thing I want you to know with fractions, the rule is, well, first of all, you undo to get the variable alone, and you want to first undo addition or subtraction. So in the first problem, I'm going to subtract 4, which is the opposite of adding 4, from both sides. And that, a positive and a negative, they eliminate each other. They become 0. And 7 minus 4 is 3. So 3 equals 1/3 times n. Now, when a variable is being multiplied by a fraction, to undo that, you multiply by its reciprocal, which would be 3/1 in this case. And you do that to this side as well. 3/1 is the same thing as 3, so since I have a whole number here, I'll choose 3 instead of 3/1. And notice the reason you do that is so that you get the variable alone. These cross cancel, they become 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1, so 1 times n is n. And that's why you use the reciprocal. And 3 times 3 is 9. So that shows how you use the reciprocal. Now, one thing I want to show you is, instead of using the reciprocal of n divided by 3, which would be 3/n, this is read differently. This is not a fraction in front of a variable. This is a variable divided by 3. What is the opposite of dividing by 3? It's times 3/1. So really, 1/3 n is the same thing as n over 3, because you would take the n times the 1, you'd end up with n over 3. So let's not confuse the rule of multiplying by the reciprocal with n divided by 3. You use the opposite of divide by 3, which is times 3. And notice these cross cancel, they become 1. And so anyway, but of course before you do that, you should have subtracted 4 here, subtracted 4 here, and you get 3. Those are eliminated. But bottom line is, this is the same problem. And so as you times that side by 3, this side should have been times by 3 as well. So first you're minus 4, then you're times by 3. And 3 times 3 is 9, so n equals 9. But I just wanted you to know that this and this is the same thing. Okay, let's look at something else. This is an example of an equation that has more than one fraction and more than one denominator. So another technique is getting rid of the fractions by multiplying through both sides with a whole number, and that whole number is determined by the least common multiple of 3 and 6, since those are our denominators. Well, what is the least common multiple? It would be 6. 3 can go into 6. So I'm going to choose 6 as what I multiply through by. And I'm going to use the distributive property. Okay, so 6 times 1 is 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So we've got 2n here. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 over 6, or 6 divided by 6, is 1. And in this case, we can cross cancel here. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. So by using the least common multiple of these denominators and that multiple was 6, multiplying through by that, now I have no more fractions to deal with. Okay, so now I follow regular rules for solving an equation. First, do the opposite of plus 1, which would be minus 1 on both sides. Those cancel each other. So I'm left with 2n equals 1. Okay, so then the opposite of times 2 is divide by 2. And these cancel and become 1. N equals 1/2. So there's my answer. N equals 1/2. Now, this is an example of decimals. And you can multiply through to get rid of decimals as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the place value of your different decimals. The place value here of my last digit in my decimal is hundredths. So that's hundredths. That's tenths. So take the lowest place value, which would be hundredths, and multiply by its opposite, which is 100. So we didn't choose 10 because hundredths is lower. So we're going to multiply by the opposite, which is 100. Do that over here as well. And then when you multiply by 100, that would be 2 decimal moves to the right. So I'd end up with 175x. And multiply through this by 100, 2 decimal moves to the right. And so that would end up being plus 50 equals 400. Okay, so now I'm going to subtract 50 here to cancel that, subtract 50 here, and I would end up with 350 equals 175x. Divide this side by 175, divide this side by 175. These cancel, they become 1 times x, leaves x alone. And 350 divided by 175 is 2. X equals 2. So what I've just demonstrated is a method for eliminating your fractions, eliminating your decimals for those that are nervous about working with fractions or decimals. I could have solved this without doing that. For example, 1/3 n plus 1/6 equals 1/3. Okay, so the first thing would have been subtract 1/6 here to eliminate that, minus 1/6 here. Well, I would have to change thirds into 6, and I do that by multiplying the numerator and denominator by 2. I'd end up with 2/6 minus 1/6, and that ends up being 1/6 equals 1/3 n. Okay, so then to get n alone, I multiply by the reciprocal. Same thing here. These cross cancel, they become 1. N is left alone. That would be 3 times 1 is 3, 6 times 1 is 6, and of course that reduces down to 1/2. So you can see I've just worked this problem 2 different methods. One is getting rid of the fractions, the other one is working with the fractions. And same thing could be done with the decimals. I could still deal with the decimals, but I think sometimes getting rid of your decimals, getting rid of your fractions makes the work a little bit easier. So, oh, maybe you didn't see me working that. Hopefully I filmed it to where you could, but if not, you can see the work here. Thank you.